Sometimes the people you underestimate are the ones who change everything. He walked into that bank looking for a chance, and walked out with humiliation. But when life came full circle, his silence became his loudest answer. It was late afternoon in Millstone County, the kind of small town where time moved slowly and everyone knew everyone's business. Dust floated in golden sunlight as a pickup truck rolled down Main Street, its tires worn, its paint faded. Behind the wheel sat Caleb Turner, a man whose hands told stories of years spent on the soil, strong, cracked, and calloused. For 20 years, Caleb had worked his father's land. He wasn't rich, but he was proud of the crops he grew, proud of his honesty, and proud that every sunrise meant another chance to build something lasting. But that year, the weather had turned cruel. 3 months of drought, then sudden floods. His harvest barely survived. And to make matters worse, his old tractor broke down for good. That's why he found himself parking outside Millstone Bank, a place he never wanted to visit. He needed a loan. Not much, just enough to replace his equipment and plant again. He straightened his shirt, dusted off his boots, and walked inside. The air was cool and sharp. The sound of polite murmurs, keyboards clicking, and distant phones filled the marble-floored lobby. Behind the counter stood Mr. Whitmore, the branch manager, a man with neatly pressed suits, slicked hair, and a smile that never reached his eyes. Caleb approached the desk. "Good morning, sir. Name's Caleb Turner. I've been farming over at Willow Creek my whole life. I'd like to apply for a small loan to get through the season." Whitmore looked up briefly, then down at the worn hat in Caleb's hands. "What kind of collateral do you have, Mr. Turner?" "Well, I got 60 acres of land and a steady yield. My father owned that land before me." Whitmore typed something, lips curling. "And how much profit did you clear last year?" Caleb hesitated. "Well, it was a tough season. The weather hit us hard." Whitmore chuckled under his breath. "So you're asking for money without profit, without insurance, and with an unpredictable business model. Sounds risky." His tone stung, not the words themselves, but the way he said them, like Caleb's life's work was a joke. "I ain't asking for charity, sir. Just a fair chance." Whitmore leaned back, eyes cold. "Mr. Turner, people like you should focus on small steps. Maybe sell a few acres instead of dreaming big." The words landed heavier than expected. Caleb stood there quietly, gripping his hat tighter. After a long silence, he simply nodded. "Thank you for your time." When he stepped out into the sunlight, something inside him shifted. Humiliation had a strange taste, bitter at first, then sharp enough to wake you up. That night, Caleb sat on his porch under the wide open sky. He looked out at the empty fields, at the land his father had once walked barefoot through. He thought about every drop of sweat, every broken tool, every time he'd chosen dignity over anger. He didn't have money, but he had resolve. And that night, he made a promise. He would never again walk into that bank needing help. Months passed. Caleb sold his truck to buy a second-hand tractor. He started renting out part of his land for solar panels. He learned about crop rotation, sustainable irrigation, and online produce sales. By the next season, his little farm had doubled its output, and people started noticing. Local restaurants wanted his produce. A nearby logistics firm asked him to supply organic shipments. What began as survival turned into success. By year 2, Caleb had 5 farms under his name, a new truck, and investors calling him Mr. Turner. He never bragged, just worked harder. And every time he passed that bank, he smiled quietly. Then came the moment. One spring morning, Caleb received a call from a local investment group he'd partnered with. "Mr. Turner, they said. The Millstone Bank is going under. Mismanagement. We're looking for someone local to acquire it. You interested? He almost laughed. Life had a sense of humor. He replied calmly. Yes. Let's talk numbers. Within a month, the papers were signed. The townspeople gathered that morning out of curiosity. The sign outside the bank had been covered with a white sheet, ready for unveiling. A sleek black truck pulled up, and out stepped Caleb Turner, no longer the struggling farmer in dusty boots, but a man in a crisp jacket, head held high. Inside, the staff whispered, "Is that him?" Mr. Whitmore, still working behind the counter, straightened his tie nervously. Caleb walked toward him slowly. The sound of his boots echoed through the marble hall, the same hall where he'd once been told to stay small. Whitmore forced a smile. "Ah, Mr. Turner. I heard about your success. How can we assist you today?" Caleb looked him in the eye. "You already have. You just didn't know it." He handed over a set of documents. Whitmore frowned, scanning them. Then his face froze. The header read, Millstone Bank Acquisition Agreement. New owner, Turner Agricultural Holdings. Whitmore's voice trembled. "You bought the bank?" Caleb smiled faintly. "You told me to take small steps." "I did. They just led me here." A stunned silence filled the room. Moments later, Caleb stepped outside to the crowd. Reporters, neighbors, and farmers gathered, waiting for the reveal. He pulled the sheet from the sign. It now read, Turner Community Bank, for those who build from the ground up. The crowd erupted in applause. Caleb turned toward the camera crews and said quietly, "This bank will never judge a man by his boots or his balance sheet. Just by his honesty and effort." Sometimes the world doesn't need you to fight back. It needs you to rise higher. Respect isn't given. It's earned quietly through persistence. And when life circles back, let your success speak louder than your pain.